My name is Matt Leach. I'm going to be speaking about homosexuality and society for my sociology presentation. I was going to do it on gay marriage and society, but decided that homosexuality in general would probably be a better topic just for the purpose of society and kind of how this different culture interacts with society in general. So I decided to start just with a brief history on homosexuality in general. Evidence of same-sex relationships exists in ancient Greece, Rome, and China, typically through ancient records and stories. The ancient Europe and Asia seem to be a little more open, or I guess one could say progressive in its views of homosexuality, especially anciently. But over time, European leadership began to grow quite uneasy with the idea of men kissing other men, which was quoted in a poem written around King Henry VIII's time. As European settlers came over to the Americas, some in particular noticed that some Native American tribes were actually practicing homosexual behavior, including sodomy. But as a result, when these European settlers saw this, uh, they basically caused some cruel consequences to come upon the offenders. This is quoted from a journal that's referenced in my reference page. Vasco discovered that the village of Quaraquea was stained by the foulest vice. The king's brother and a number of other courtiers were dressed as women, and according to the accounts of the neighbors, shared the same passion. Vasco ordered 40 of them to be torn to pieces by dogs. The Spaniards commonly used their dogs in fighting against these naked people, and the dogs threw themselves upon them as though they were wild boars on timid deer. So we can see that the treatment of homosexuals or those who practiced this behavior greatly went downhill as the centuries moved forward. And prejudice continued over the next several centuries, including violence in Nazi Germany. Homosexuals were referred to as antisocial parasites, enemies of the state, and were threatened with the disciplined masculinity of Germany. The Nazis, of course, had this idealistic view of the man and basically how a man should act and behave, and they were basically forcing this upon homosexuals. And it is estimated, according to a report, that some 50,000 men served prison terms as convicted homosexuals. I tried to find some statistics and historical accounts of women who've been affected by the backlash of homosexual behavior, and that, interestingly enough, is not easy to come by, those historical records. But I do know that, of course, that women were just as negatively affected as men throughout history. I just, of course, could not find some specific numbers at this time. So we can see here homosexuality today and how it is tolerated in different parts of the world. You can see that the Western Hemisphere seems to be a lot more tolerant with same-sex marriage all across Canada, into parts of the United States, and across much of South America with civil unions or other marriages from other jurisdictions are recognized, including in Mexico and other parts of Central America. On the Eastern Hemisphere, it's a lot more conservative. In fact, there are several African countries, including Ghana and here in the Middle East, that enact the death penalty for those who practiced homosexuality. Only a few parts of Europe and then Australia recognize some type of partnership between homosexuals. So really the attitude has definitely changed, and it continues to change, even if there is a lot of animosity still that has to be dealt with, especially in the African and Middle East countries. But there's still a long way to go, of course. Because of social stigma, it is reported that gay and lesbian high school students are, quote, 3.4 times more likely to have attempted suicide than their straight peers. Now, I'm going to show a video clip of Ellen DeGeneres basically speaking about this issue for just a brief moment here.
I am devastated over the death of 18-year-old Tyler Clementi. If you don't know, Tyler was a bright student at Rutgers University whose life was senselessly cut short. He was outed as being gay on the internet, and he killed himself. Something must be done. This month alone, there have been a shocking number of news stories about teens who have been teased and bullied and then committed suicide, like 13-year-old Seth Walsh in Tehachapi, California, 13-year-old Asher Brown in Cypress, Texas, and 15-year-old Billy Lucas in Greensburg, Indiana. This needs to be a wake-up call to everyone that teenage bullying and teasing is an epidemic in this country, and the death rate is climbing. One life lost in this senseless way is tragic. 4 lives lost is a crisis. And these are just the stories we hear about. How many other teens have we lost? How many others are suffering in silence? Being a teenager and figuring out who you are is hard enough without someone attacking you.
So Ellen, of course, capitalizes on the point that bullying is a huge epidemic across the United States in particular, but especially for those youth who find themselves in a situation that socially these days is still looked down upon as being some sort of either crime or sickness or a mental issue, and it affects a great deal of many teens and even adults. So here's how it plays into structural functionalism. The quote from the handout that was given via Brain Honey said that every society has some system for assigning people to different social positions and socializing them into the relevant roles. This makes the homosexual individual feel particularly out of place, as society certainly hasn't necessarily established a clear role for the homosexual individual. There are still many discrimination laws that are well, not discrimination laws, but there are many states that don't have anti-discrimination laws that protect them from being discriminated in the workplace or even at school. And so because the way society is structured these days, there isn't a safe haven for everybody. Now, what if an individual inherently does not fit into the proper social structure? Well, usually what ends up happening is things like protests and change in legislation. And we see that happening today, whether it's protesting for marriage equality, change in legislation for the anti-discrimination laws. People are beginning to share their voices because a lot of these wrongs, according to this social structure, need to be changed. Now, conflict theory is another big issue. There was this article given by Good Morning America about a judge who ordered a Colorado baker to cater for a same-sex wedding. This baker denied the couple and said that they didn't want to provide any services because they didn't agree with the lifestyle. The same-sex couple, of course, went up in arms about it and basically brought it to court. And then the judge ordered that the baker provide this service to them. This is typically what happens when you have this major conflict in a society. Usually there are these dramatic calls to action, even if it comes down to the law forcing individuals to do certain things. Now, whether this is morally right or wrong is, I suppose, another conversation or another presentation. But this is the trend that we're seeing, is that more and more individuals who are feeling that they're wronged end up now needing to prove a point or to go and take a couple steps forward to basically show that what is happening in society is wrong. And of course, there's a lot of symbolic interactionism within the homosexual environment, especially if we're talking about gay marriage. The symbol of marriage is a union that binds two people together and brings them basically closer to one another and develops that love and that bond. And so definitely homosexual couples want the ability to form that same symbolic covenant, that was instituted by God. They want to have it for themselves. Callings in the LDS Church, there's a lot of symbolism in that, especially when it comes to being able to have that kind of social structure within the church. Gay members feel that they're not being treated necessarily as equally if they're not given those same opportunities to serve. And then, of course, there's the acceptance and tolerance, which is so needful from other people that so many homosexual individuals want to have for themselves. Now, the potential fears for allowing gay rights, I suppose, or necessarily accepting others who may have different attractions or feelings than ourselves. Some people have noted that it could damage the structure of the family unit, that it's against God's will, or that the scriptures clearly define that it's not appropriate. And that goes, of course, into the whole immoral and impure argument. And these fears are valid for a lot of those who are definitely religious-based. However, there are things that even those individuals can do to still show their love and their tolerance. First of all, to listen with love. The best thing that we can do to solve this problem of bullying, of suicides, of just a lot of discrimination is just to listen with love, to search for understanding, try to understand this issue and put yourself in the shoes of those who are suffering and be available for support. Nothing is worse than feeling like you're alone in an issue that's made all the more confusing because of society's rules and regulations. And also speak out against hate and intolerance. Don't be afraid to be a voice of hope for those who are suffering. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints has issued a website called Love One Another, a discussion on same-sex attraction, mormonsandgays.org, which goes over this principle very well about not discriminating or hating against others. Again, homosexuality is an issue that society will face for eons to come, but here's hoping that at least individual members of society can make a difference by being more open and loving and respectful towards others. And then here's my reference page. I'll also send this via email so that you can have these references for yourself. Thank you.